So, welcome back. Today we would like to talk about how to set up the Optitrack motion capturing system here in the Motion Experience Lab at KIST. So, first of all, let's recap a little bit what we've already talked about in our last courses. But the Optitrack system, what is it? So it's basically like a room scale infrared camera system you can use for capturing motion data, so maybe based on body tracking, so on body suits. You can also capture VR headsets in a room to set up VR multi-user setups, or you can also just place infrared stickers or infrared markers on physical objects to track them in a room. The Optitrack system is super accurate and does also record with more than or around 240 frames per second. So that means that 200 times in 1 second, the Optitrack system checks where is movements in the room, where the markers are. So it's a pretty accurate system to also track, for example, how sports actors are moving or how dancers are performing and so on. How does it work? So Optitrack is a system based on infrared cameras. So these cameras are emitting infrared light into the room, and then markers are reflecting, or special infrared markers are reflecting the light, and the cameras are checking how long does it take that the light comes back out of the room, where the location is based on different camera angles and so on. So you can do a lot of stuff with it, and the cool thing is that Motive, the software I will talk about in a second, also has a lot of algorithms included in there. So in case that, for example, on your MOCAP suit or on markers, one marker gets missed for a second, or there's shadowing involved, that maybe another actor is standing in front of you or so. The software already tries to predict where the points are, and that flickering effects or shadowing effects try to be avoided here. Okay, so what do we need for the setup? So basically, there's one USB dongle, which is probably the most important thing you shouldn't lose, because without the USB dongle, the Optitrack software doesn't work. So always plug that one in before you are starting Motive. Then there are two calibration tools. One is like a calibration stick. You have to walk around in the room. I'll show you in a second later how that works. And then there's also a calibration triangle you can put on the floor to calibrate the floor height. Then, of course, there are the Optitrack cameras. You need to set up in the room so that they can all more or less have a view on the whole room. In our case, we did that on one of these event rigs you can buy out there, so that they are mounted under the ceiling and have a view over the whole room. And last but not least, in our case today, we need a motion capturing suit provided by Optitrack as well. So as you can see on the right side, it's like basically a stretchy whole body suit, and then you can put these different Optitrack markers onto the suit. Of course, you can build your own markers as well. You can just track infrared points in the room. If you want to, for example, track other physical objects than humans, you can just place markers onto them and then connect it with the software. Just a glimpse into the technical setup. So, of course, we have our main computer who's connected over a LAN cable to our PoE switch. That's basically like a normal Ethernet switch you might know from Ethernet setups as well. The cameras do not need any power because they are powered over Ethernet. So just plug in all the cameras with the provided Ethernet cables into the provided switch, and then connect this one to your PC with one Cat6 cable, and power the switch on, and then you're pretty much ready to go. Okay, so now let's see how everything looks like, how you guys can reach it here in our motion experience lab. So first of all, there are these little Optitrack bags. You can see here in the front there is our USB dongle. So this one you have to plug into your host PC. And inside of these bags there are the motion capturing suits. So this, for example, is the shoe overlay. There are caps as well, and the whole suit. So I'll try that on in a second. Then there is this calibration triangle you can use for calibrating the floor. We'll also see how that works in a second. Then we have the Optitrack calibration stick. This one needs to be mounted together. So that one is for if you set up the system for the first time, or if stuff has changed. I don't know, for example, that the cameras were moved because you needed to remove stuff from our event rig here, and you're realizing that the system is not working as good as it was anymore before, then you can recalibrate it, and you can do that with this stick here. Yeah, you do not, or there's no need to do that every time. So as soon as Optitrack is calibrated once and you're not changing anything about the setup at all, you can just leave it like it is, and then it should work. So maybe let's have a glimpse into the room as well. So as you can see here, we have these tracking rigs mounted under the ceiling, and there you can see the Optitrack cameras. Maybe go a little bit further. So let's see. Yeah, there's one of the cams over there. And at our setup here, we have basically 8 cameras in the room. So there's one, then there's one in the middle, one on the left side, and then on all the other rigs here as well. So that they are pretty much covering the whole room. We have a setup here around 7 by 7 meters, but you even can increase it to around 10 by 10 meters with 8 cameras. This here is our little server rig. So as you can see here, there are 8 cables coming in from the cameras, so from the ceiling above, and there's another cable going into our PC. And yeah, there's nothing you can do wrong. Just power it on, plug all the cables in. It doesn't matter on what port which cable is plugged into. They just need to be connected like yeah, PCs in a yeah, LAN network basically. Okay, so then let's open Motive and let's calibrate the whole system. So now we want to start with the calibration. So first of all, get the USB dongle out of our bag here. Don't forget to put it back into the bag after that, otherwise it will get lost. So we plug that one in now into our PC. Now we can start the software, which is called Motive. It's straight on the desktop, so just double click on that one. Okay, here we go. We can close that one here. And now what we want to do is, because you can see, and we've already done something here, but we want to do a new calibration. So here in the camera calibration tool, you can first of all, the left tab calibration is selected anyway. And what you can do now is start wending. So click on that one. But first of all, make sure that you set up this calibration stick here. So just put the top part onto the stick and screw it together here. Looks like that. And now if you click on start wending, you can see that as soon as we are reaching the area here, the camera is staying activated. So there are little LEDs showing blue, green, which areas are active right now. And what you basically need to do is to cover the whole area. So wander around, move the stick around, that the cameras can see every part of the room. So we are going circles here, smaller circles every round, so that we cover the whole area. In the 8 windows in MOCAP, you can see how the cameras are capturing the infrared points. So the goal is that they are more or less fully covered, so that every camera has a super nice view on all the areas of the room. And we will see if we click on calculate in a second if the movements we did here were enough or not. So let's see. Yeah, all these areas here look pretty good. I mean, of course, there are still a couple of black spots in here, but as you can see on the left side, our calibration tool, yeah, gives us the request that the quality is already very high. So for us, that's totally perfect. So now next step is click here on calculate. Now it takes a while. Okay. Now we are getting a little pop-up here, just showing us that the calibration result is exceptional. Click on apply here. And now we can see, maybe we remove the skeletons here for a second. These were just part of an old project. So now you can see that we have the cameras in here. The cameras are calibrated, but what's missing by now, because as you can see, they are pretty much tilted in the room. So what we need to do is set the ground plane, and that's where our triangular tool needs to be set up. So this is in this little box here. So let's open that one. And all you have to do is basically set this one up in the one of the edges of our tracking area. So let's do that. It's important for the calibration process that there are no other infrared markers in the room, because otherwise the software might get confused. So before you're doing other calibration things, maybe put the calibration stick and all the calibration markers and so on into the boxes, so that there's no other reflected infrared light. Now we've placed, where is it? There, the calibration triangle onto the floor. And now we can click on Set Ground Plane here. Now Optitrack is asking us to also save the file somewhere. So maybe we can add a new folder here. Workspace, motive, and then under calibration, export that one. And then, as you can see here, our cameras are already in place. So they have exactly now the position based on the room, so on the height of the room. And yeah, from that point on, we are pretty much ready to go. Okay, now as you can see, I put on my nice Optitrack suit. I didn't put the whole thing on, it's just the jacket and a nice hat. So yeah, let's jump back into motive then. Basically, I mean, there's tons of stuff you can do with motive, but just to explain you how you can super quickly start with a project. Always go to the layout tab here on top. And then there are the main features here. So first of all, calibrate, that's already what we've done, what you start with when you open the software. And now there's one step which is called create, where you can basically set up the suit calibration and what kind of suit or what kind of markers we want to use. Then later there's the capture tab where we can record our data, and in the end the edit tab where you can adjust your motion capturing recorded data in detail. Okay, so now in the second step, let's go to create. And now what you can see here on the left, you can already define for the motion capturing what kind of suit you want to use. There are different ones, like here the baseline, for example, which is using 37 required points, so tracking points. And so if you suit up, make sure that you are more or less position all the infrared markers accurately on the suit. What we want to use now is just here this upper body suit with 25 tracking points. So there's no need for me to try on everything. So now, as you can see, these markers here you can easily attach and deattach. So make sure that these fit from the layout more or less, or pretty accurate to the layout we have here in our motive software on the left side. And then as soon as you think that you did everything right, you can go into the capturing area, because right now you can see that there is a sign saying no incoming data by now, check settings. So that means that we have to move into the area a bit. Already the rigid body attached to the scene, around. And that's basically the first step how you can get your motion capturing 3D character into your scene here. It's always important at the beginning, because you can select here on the left side between different calibration poses. So I've used T-pose, so make sure that you are standing in a T-pose at the beginning. You can also select between A pose with arms forward or downwards. And you can also preload define label settings, but that's something we do not use by now. So basically now we've added our skeleton, and then we can go to to layout and then capture, because now we want to capture our first data. And basically over here we have our skeleton. Maybe we can even rename it, because the naming will be displayed later on in Blender or Unity. So maybe let's call it upper body 01, whatever. So now what we can do is simply click here on record. And now it's pretty flickery at the beginning, because I'm not sitting in the area the Optitrack system works. Well, this is capturing the data. So now I'm moving a little bit more into the whole scene. And you can see that the tracking gets more accurate. Now I can use moves here. Capture some stuff. And let's go back. Then just click on the record icon here again. And then we have our first recorded session. You can double click on the different takes to replay them again. Okay, now you can see that Optitrack is tracking the body pretty accurate. So we are moving around in the scene, moving the head a little bit. Yeah, and that's basically what we just recorded. There are a lot of takes we can probably just delete, but we just want to go forward with that one. Okay, so now as we have created our first little animation, what we can do here is in the layout tab, go to now edit. And then, as you can see here on the left side in our assets panel, there are all the takes we've created by now, also calibration takes and so on. We just want to focus on the last one we created. So this is one of our snippets. And I think there are a lot of stuff you can do in Motive, and I will share the link with you guys to how you can learn to maybe edit the labels of your rigid bodies, or how to adjust movements, how to get rid of flickering and so on. But that might be a little bit too much for this crash course here. But a pretty handy tool you can use here is this timeline. So if you double click on our take, you can scrub around here and see our recordings again. And especially at the beginning, because you might just go into the scene and there are a lot of mismatches and a lot of flickering in there. So we just want to start where the body tracking starts to work in our Optitrack scene. And you can see that also because the green areas are the areas where the infrared points of our skeleton got tracked accurately. And so from here on, you can see that left shoulder and so on, these are unlabeled by now because our skeleton only has 25 points. But if you have a bigger skeleton, these will be marked in green as well. And now you can see that from frame 1738 on, the tracking looks quite fine. What we can do here is set our working area also at a beginning point from 1738. And then we can scrub around a little bit. Okay, everything looks nice until here when we leave the room again. So maybe we will put our endpoint to 4281. And then we have a nice working area only with the captured data we want to export. Okay, maybe I'm here to Control S from time to time to save everything. And now it's pretty easy. What we can do is just click here on these little 3 dots of our take. Okay, let's see why it's not working at the moment. Okay, it seems like there's a bug. Let's go back. Okay, now it works. I have no clue what that was, but I've just switched the layout again. So now there's the submenu, and you can see that there are a lot of functionalities you can use, like show me the file location where the data is stored right now, auto label things. Yeah, as I said, maybe you can dive more deeply into the Optitrack documentation, but that means that labels on this skeleton get auto-labeled. So for every skeleton in Unity, for example, or in Blender, the skeleton needs to be labeled in a proper way. And this tool already does that for us. There are issues with that. But what we want to do here in this quick tutorial is just export our tracking data. So we can just click on Export. And then we can maybe rename this take to, I don't know, silly dance. For Unity or also Unreal or Blender, we can use the FBX format. So, and what we want to do, use timecode is fine. Scaling to 1 is also fine. Export skeleton means that we are exporting the 3D model of the skeleton as well, which is kind of nice, especially at the beginning. We just want to drag and drop it into your scene and already try how it looks like, but you can always switch it with another skeleton out of the asset store, for example. Then marker nulls are set off because marker nulls are pretty much here the unlabeled markers who are in the room. We don't need them. It makes our data smaller. And rigid body nulls you can leave, because sometimes if they are, for example, rigid bodies or rigid body points which are not tracked anymore, they are still in the scene as an object, but they are not moving, so you can even edit them later on in another software. Unit meters is fine, unlabeled markers we don't need, and fingertips we can track, so that's all fine. So now we can export that maybe under the same workspace we've used here. So basically, oh sorry, maybe not Unity, first of all in Motive, and then maybe add a new folder here which is called exports. And yeah, that's basically it from the Motive software and from Optitrack side. And yeah, now we can import all of that into Unity. But yeah, as I said, you can also use Blender or Unreal or any other software. Just drag and drop your FBX in there, and then you're ready to go.